Welcome everyone to this inaugural edition of Tête-à-Têtes, which is a new conversation series that we launched with our friends at Byta. Following today's event, there will be a new episode every 6 weeks or so until at least next fall. So we're really excited about that. Sorry, I should have introduced myself maybe for the people who do not know me. My name is Maud Salvi. I'm Sled Island's director. Yeah, we've been working on this series for quite a few months now, so it's really
too long.
Yeah, it's really exciting to finally kick it off, and I personally couldn't be more excited to have the guest we have today. I want to take a second to thank our funders who made this project possible: the Rosé Foundation, Calgary Arts Development, and the Alberta Foundation for the Arts. And just one note, the series is free to attend. However, if you would like to support Sled Island and encourage us to do more projects like that coming up, if you feel so inclined, you can donate on our website, sledisland.com/donate. Any contribution is very much appreciated. Now I will pass the mic to our friend Mark.
Thanks, Maud. My name is Mark. I live in Stockholm. I'm the founder of a service for sending and receiving digital audio called Byta. And I'm also originally from Calgary, so I'm super aware of what Sled Island do, and I think they're actually the best festival in Canada by far the best programming. And when Maud and I met in January, we decided to cook up a couple of ideas of maybe what we could do together. And I guess we didn't really know that we'd end up here 9 months later, but when we were getting ready to sort of get going here, we were all sitting in the green room chatting. And I think everybody agreed that as bad as all this COVID stuff is, especially for live music or a festival like Sled Island, I think the major opportunity is that this seems completely normal. We have people in Calgary, me in Stockholm, Montreal, our guests a little south of me. It really feels amazing just to be able to do this with just a little bit of planning. And it would not have been possible 9 months ago because it's just accepted now. And I think that's super exciting. And I think another really exciting part about this is, just like I was saying, Maud and I only met for the first time in January, but I've been coming to Sled Island for 10 years. And I know our host, Patty Schmidt, has a long relationship with people we work with. And now we're inviting new friends into the conversation. I think that's another great thing. Old friends getting together with new friends. So I'm going to pass it over to Patty, and then she'll introduce us to our guests.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sled Island. Thank you, Byta. Thank you for introducing me to Radio Alhara, and thank you to everyone online with us this afternoon. And it's a real pleasure to be here across 4 and maybe many more time zones for this first tete-a-tete with Radio Alhara. By way of just a very brief sort of summary introduction to Radio Alhara, and of course they're here to unpack this. Born of the pandemic, Radio Alhara, which stands for the Neighborhood Radio, is a multilingual communal radio station program and project originating in Bethlehem and Ramallah, centering Arab music and culture and extending throughout the world now. And there are resident artists and programmers from around the region and elsewhere, covering all manner of genre. There are chefs on air, oral histories, economic discussions, and many special projects. There are 5 co-founders, and we will be joined by 2 of them today. Elias Anastas, who's based in Bethlehem, and Saeed Abu Jabbar in Amman, Jordan. And 3 of Radio Alhara's other founders are living in the occupied and landlocked West Bank, which is a significant factor in the radio station and in this conversation. So welcome to you both.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Patty.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Total pleasure. Whenever someone starts a radio station, there's always the first thing that they play. So you started this station on March 20th. So for us in Canada, it was in Quebec, 5 days after the first lockdown here. What was the first thing that you played on Radio Alhara, and how was that chosen?
That's a very important question, but I'm not sure we actually have the answer to that. Yes, you know.
This is supposed to be a significant birth story.
You know, the thing is, I think we did not expect this to go on for this long to begin with. You know, it happened in like a matter of minutes, and Lias was there at the inception, basically. Lias,
I think when we started, the whole idea was to maintain the contact with all our friends in the region, and we were not really projecting to start a radio, but rather creating a database where we'd exchange our libraries. And basically, for example, Saeed had a daily show for the first 10 days. So, and gradually it grew into a kind of communal project where each one of our friends started inviting his friends, and very progressively it proliferated in a way that actually yesterday we were counting. We have over 115 residents that play on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, bi-monthly basis, which is quite incredible in a time lapse of less than 8 months. But yeah, I think first the idea wasn't really trying to trigger a radio that was broadcasting from Amman and Palestine, and trying to identify a specific identity to the music and to the content that was airing on the radio, but rather trying to decluster this idea of context. That's why the radio is called Radio Alhara, and Hara in Arabic it means neighborhood. And the idea of the neighborhood was to project ourselves in the context of the pandemic and trying to look at the planet as one neighborhood. And basically we are emitting and we're broadcasting from these specific localities, but trying to have a wider reach and trying to connect with a wider audience.
You have no idea what the first thing you played was.
That was the longest answer to say no, I think. Yeah, no, I don't think. Maybe Yusuf does. We should know.
Okay.
So sad. Now I'm sad. I never thought about this, by the way.
I have no idea.
So walk us back a little bit to, I mean, you mentioned some of this already, Elias, but the getting on your feet with the station. And when did you get a sense that this pandemic, like already by March 20th, that already this lockdown situation was not going to be short?
In Palestine and in Jordan, by the very beginning of the pandemic, so basically in March, we were under a total curfew. So it was like a total lockdown where in Jordan, actually, they were not allowed to walk in the streets. In Bethlehem and Ramallah, the streets were closed. We had like locks that segmented areas of the city. And in Palestine, we're used to curfews, and we are used to these very specific moments of solidarity within our political context. So we were trying to achieve and trying to look at different opportunities on how we could invest our time in that specific moment where, our work stopped, and we had to look into new opportunities of occupying ourselves. But yeah, we basically no one knew exactly. In March we were expecting to have the radio run until June, and we were thinking that we'll have back a summer of holidays and we'll be traveling again. And basically it continued. Pandemic is still running, and the question that is constantly coming towards us is what's next for the radio. And it's actually we have no answer to that, and I think that's the richness of the radio, is maintaining this idea that the radio is engulfing so many practitioners, so many disciplines, and it's grabbing a specific attention because it's attracting a very diverse and wide audience. So yeah, I think I went far from your question, but just to say that the radio is a project that is ongoing, and is it's a project that is having a new face every day.
For you, Saeed?
And I think it worked probably because most of us were in lockdown. I don't think it would have worked otherwise. The way it started was we just called a couple of friends, like good friends of ours who we know kind of DJ either full time or on the side, and they have fun with it. And it grew from there. So a friend of ours would come in, and we're like, okay, why don't you do a weekly show? And then he'd call somebody else. And I think that was the beautiful part of it, the unexpected growth of the whole thing. But what was the question exactly again? Sorry.
Well, when you realized that it wasn't going to be short, and that you were going to be investing in this more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like it's a bit by bit. Right now, it takes a lot of time, from the emails, from programming, doing the covers every day. I mean, this also grew by time. So in the beginning, let's say we had a couple of shows only, let's say maybe 10 shows a week. So it wasn't this sudden, like we got used to it, I think, bit by bit, because it grew slowly, which I think is nice. I mean, if you gave me what each of us has to do right now, compared to 3 months ago, I don't think we know how to deal with it. But it was like a learning curve for all of us, I guess, in that sense. And it's still going, and we keep trying to keep it fresh. Sorry, go on.
Well, I mean, so this learning curve. So what kind of resources, as it started to pick up steam, what things did you need to learn that was a new toolbox for you, or were amongst the 5 of you able to figure out all the tech, all the scheduling, all the graphics, all the promotion? What was that? What was the trajectory of all of that?
Yeah, no, it was what we needed day by day, really. So it's still run on really we run the radio on Radio Jar. We use a program called Byta, that's an open source program. So those technical things, I think Yusuf in the beginning sorted out. The branding, Ilyas called Muthanna, who's my partner in my design company, design studio. And Muthanna just did a logo very quickly. So it was very, most people who are playing on the radio don't really have proper, let's say, DJ equipment or sound equipment. Some of them do, but most don't. And it's either really, basic controllers or just a sound card. So it's still till now, I don't think we're very technically advanced. We used what we could find somehow, we scavenged for bits and pieces. So yeah.
But, I think it was essentially we're the 5 of us. We're actually 5 founders, and each one of we come all from kind of the cultural field. So we tried to segment our daily task. Each one of us taking care of a very specific aspect. For example, Saeed takes care actually of the emails and trying to do all bookings, etc. Muthanna and myself work on the graphics. Yusuf is animating the radio and doing all the technical aspect, and Yazan is working as well on the cultural talks and cultural projects that we have on the radio. So we have and as well, I think it's the 5 of us, but it's basically the work of the entire community that is that's coming together in that specific project. And there's something super funny in Palestine. They some people are not calling it Radio Alhara, but they calling it in Arabic Radio Al-Umma. Al-Umma, it means the radio of
the nation. The nation.
The nation, yeah.
Yeah, the radio of the nation. And what Ilyas said, I think, is very important. There's things that we don't know how to do between the 5 of us. So there's a friend of ours who runs a bi-monthly show, like a takeover for a couple of hours, and he's the one who helps us with the website. Other people who we've become friends with now also curate with us and contact other people in the name of the radio. So it started with 5, but it's really not just the 5 of us. It wouldn't have gone to this scale, I think, and having all these people play and meeting all these people, if it wasn't for it's a very communal effort in a sense.
I want to ask you a kind of a broad question on sort of the radio itself and the imaginaries of historical radio and its uses and things like that. It's an old medium that's proven, extremely resilient through global and technological change. It can't be killed. And it lives very different lives and uses around the world. So it's also been a powerful tool for social movements, and has shape-shifted so nicely into satellite and podcasting and net radio over the years. Can you paint us a picture of the role of radio in everyday life in the region where you live, like the terrestrial radio and then the new net radio, which is, I don't know if it's 5 to 10 years old in the Middle East and North Africa by now, but what is the role that this medium is played in people's lives, like maybe even your own or your communities before this?
Yeah, I'm in Amman, so from my side, for the longest time we didn't have there was no private radios, so there were only 2 radio stations run by the government. So one was in English and one was in Arabic. And to be honest, now looking back after, there's like commercial radio and other people in, I think because there were only 2 radios, the English radio station was fantastically programmed, from like talk shows and, the rock show. I used to listen to the rock show all the time. And there's something nice about it. I think in general, there's a romantic side to radio that we kind of lost after, the internet and everything. And we kind of came back to it now, I feel, or at least for me. So yeah, for the longest time, it was only government run. And then around 20 years ago, they started letting people, buying licenses and starting their own radio stations. Elias can tell you more for sure, because radio also played a huge political part, I think, even in Jordan, but as well in Palestine, in a bigger scale, I'd imagine.
One of the things that we like to say about Radio Alhara is that it's conceived and it's acting as a form of a public space, because it's we have almost no filters. Everyone can contribute. Initially, we had like a Dropbox folder where anyone could drag his files into the Dropbox folder, and we just programmed and created like a specific calendar. So the connection with your question and that is, in Palestine, there's a very strong history of radio that started in the 30s with the British Mandate, where the British actually started the Palestine Broadcasting Service in 1936, I think. And initially, it was a project that was announced to be a cultural project, a project that tried to cover historical aspects of Palestine and try to show the multi faces of that specific region. But actually, there was a very specific agenda behind that radio, and that radio evolved during between the 30s until the 80s into a succession of different political radios and radios that had different agendas, and that's what brings a kind of connection with the idea of public space. The public space as well in Palestine as a space in the city is a space that had a very strong importance in the morphology of the city, and gradually with time, with the occupation and with the colonial regimes that have in Palestine, public spaces started to be seen with a kind of suspicious eye. And initially, a public space is a space where everyone can express himself in a total freedom. It's a space that is shared. It's a common space. While in Palestine, because of these succession of occupations, it started to be a space that is that actually is hostile, kind of, and it's kind of reflected within the idea and the history of the radio, where, for example, the radio, for example, in after the war of 1967, the radio was used actually to connect Palestinian refugees that were expelled from Palestine with Palestine. So it was using the vector of the radio as a cultural vector that would connect Palestinians that are exiled with local Palestinians in Palestine. And so that created, there was a kind of a war of radios where constantly the Palestinian radios were jammed by the occupation, by Israel, because they formulated the kind of a form of resistance.
Well, are there ways that your freedom of expression is restricted or monitored on Radio Alhara?
Absolutely not.
Is it a fear?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
I think, Elias, you also said somewhere in an interview I was reading that you don't see Radio Alhara as being an explicitly political project. And there are a few ways that you also are kind of political. Do you want to talk a little bit about that balance in content?
I mean, how to say it? Whatever you do, everything we do on a daily basis, whether we're in Palestine, in Jordan, in Canada, or in France, when we're in a cultural sphere, it becomes a kind of political tool. But we try to dissociate the idea of being a radio that is emitting from Palestine with the idea of being automatically seen as a political radio. There's a very strong importance and of what we air on the radio and how we do it, and there's as well an importance on being sensitive towards contextual situations and context that is happening in Palestine. One of the examples is, I think you referred to the campaign that we launched in July that was called Fil Mishmash, and the idea that of that campaign was, in July, Israel decided unilaterally to annex a certain number of settlements that are internationally, that actually are against international law, and they were backed by the US. And for us, it was a very strong moment where we had to do something, we had to react in a certain way, and we had a discussion for a few days, and we were trying to identify the proper way on that would stick to the identity of the radio and that would stick to the way we're shaping the radio, and do a proper reaction that would reach people that won't be reached with traditional media. Anything that is covered, any kind of media and any structure of media that covers Palestine is not reaching a very wide population, and we were trying to reach a different kind of population through the radio. So we invited 75 DJs and sound artists to produce a very specific piece that would mark and show solidarity with Palestine against the annexation plan. And it was crazy because we had the idea on a Sunday night, I remember, and we emailed 75 people over the night. And we were like, maybe, we'd have responses in the coming 72 hours, and we would start programming this if we have sufficient number of participants. And the very next day in the morning, we had like 75 yes. And it was amazing because the 75 contributors created specific pieces for that petition and for that kind of collective form of solidarity.
Yeah, and I can add something else. I think in general, region for the past 50 years, very inherently political, like living, and it's like the radio isn't, but what I'm trying to say is, in the end, it always, there's always some kind of, a political thing attached to it because of the area and where we live and the whole region.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really escape it. It's there. It's on everyone's mouths every day, for the past 50 years. So it's there.
But it's political as well, in the sense where, for example, we within the frame when we created we had a very specific day where we wanted to show solidarity with Black Lives Matter, where we actually canceled the entire programming of the radio over a period of 2 days, I think, Said, I can't remember, and we only broadcasted speeches and music that actually referred to that specific context. So the idea is as well to try to go back to this idea of the Hara, this neighborhood where we are all facing transversal issues that are bringing us together, and using the platform of the radio to bring us together in a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, during the Black Lives Matter, so that was, I think that was a very interesting debate that we had, because we're like, okay, there's a media blackout going on, and to be honest, living in the area, and especially in Palestine, if we were to do a blackout every time somebody is wronged and killed wrongly, then probably the radio would air once a week. If we want to take the same stance of what happens, because there's bad things happening, and occupation killing people all the time. So we thought about it, like, we can't just cut transmission for this. If we do this, maybe then we'll have to do this every time somebody gets killed or some bad stuff happens. And we felt that the best way forward is to actually play music and speeches and talks and by Black American figures that fought for their rights, I guess, during in history, basically.
What was the reaction to the airing of this 70? Was it 72 hours of programming in the end?
Nearly 80, I think. I think we jumped. I think it was 80 in total.
I mean, and the nice thing about internet radio is you can kind of get a sense of how many people are listening. When you have a nice interactive page that you do, people can actually feed back. What was the responses like, and did they surprise you? And if they did, in what ways?
I think the engagement was crazy. Sorry, Elias, if you want to. The engagement was crazy, and then the support was. I mean, because we have the chat room, I think the chat room has been crucial to what Radio Alhara is. And really, like, now I have friends from that chat room. There's like a community on that chat room on its own that grew somehow. We're like, and now I feel they're really good friends, although I haven't known them before. But I think the general reaction was great. And, because of the internet, as you said, we can monitor. So you can see the spike. There's a huge spike during those 3 days. I can't remember what it was, the numbers, but I think that the spike that only surpassed that was when we premiered the Nicholas Jar's album. That was the peak, I think, and then Film Mishmish was. But still, I feel it was unexpected, the amount of replies we got, and I think the variety of. Sorry, I'm going on about Film Mishmish, but I think it was quite fun because most of these people who played in Film Mishmish already are residents and have shows normally. But when it came to this, we felt, okay, what do I play for an event like this? I'm not going to play like tropical Caribbean music. So some of them were, and some of them were very angry sets. Some people would record themselves talking about this as an intro to the mix that they sent, which I thought was beautiful, seeing the reaction of people and what they decided to say about it, and how to portray their feelings maybe through music, which I think is that's the essence of music at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's what's really fascinating is trying to look at this idea of layering, where actually media that covered that specific project. Some of them were interested by the idea of the political message behind it, but some of them were interested as well by the lineup. So there were journals that cover electronic music that covered the campaign and the project because of the lineup. And basically, through this coverage, we are reaching a different kind of audience, and we're reaching a different kind of readers. So basically, this injustice and this form of inequality that's happening is gathering a wider attention, and is actually going to look towards populations that are not initially interested to know more, for example. And for example, the set that was played by Nicholas Jar, the first, I think, 20 minutes of it, he spoke about the question of water in Palestine, which is a dramatic situation where the way water is shared in Palestine, and the power that is exploited by the occupation in the way of controlling water is quite crazy. And so basically his contribution was putting a lot of emphasis on the politics of water. And so this is like wasn't something that would be expected by the fans of Nicholas Jar that tuned in to listen to his set. And so basically through that channel we are kind of trying to reach and to achieve different kinds of responses and results.
Maybe you were able to imagine that it could be even wider.
Yeah,
and did the server crash?
I think we had 12,000. We had around 12,000 people listening at a very specific moment. So for us, it was crazy. Like we had days where we were happy to have 40 people listening, and suddenly it went to 12,000. So
crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Definitely crazy, unexpected. I mean, this whole thing has been unexpected, to be very honest.
I want to talk a little bit about sort of the centering of Arab musicians, Arab sounds, the Middle East in a more wider sense, North Africa also, in terms of kind of the core musics, even though everything is permitted on Radio Alhara. And talk a little bit, maybe, if you could, about the rise of Middle Eastern contemporary music, a lot of it in electronic, a lot of it in pop. And it's not my imagination that this has been happening over the last 5 or 6 years, and probably the internet and access to cracked Ableton or whatever has been behind it a little bit. So maybe tell me a little bit about what you this momentum in the region.
Well, I'll say this, I feel the region or different cities, like Amman, let's take that, Amman, for example. 2011, 2012, we still talk about that, 2-3 years. It was like everything was brewing, slowly. Things were brewing, like there was so much stuff coming out. And, being in Amman is a small city, so it goes through phases. So that happened, and now it's like, then it went down, it's like a sine wave, But I think talent in general has been around. It's just, it's been around, but it's never been centralized, let's say, or there's like one platform where, we know these people in Beirut who have been doing this for years on end, and people in Egypt and people in Palestine. So it's been happening for a while, and of course, as you said, the internet played a huge part in getting exposure to these people and talents that we believe are like world class to a certain extent. So from that aspect, yeah, there's so much, and with electronic music and all that. So yeah, sorry, yeah, yes.
Well, I mean, there's also the other component that sort of Middle East and North Africa is really dominated by a surge of young people, and again, access to the internet is more widespread. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Like even in Iran, they're able to participate globally, where there are a lot of restrictions on dancing and distribution of information. How do you think the next decade might evolve in the Middle East and North Africa as far as artistic, musical development and global context? And you have a part to play in this too, maybe.
In Palestine, during the last 10 years, there has been a succession of music institutions and conservatories and music schools that have been developing and that are being now really part of the city and part of the curriculum that we have at schools. And I think it comes it's very much linked to your question, because many of the underground scene, for example, in Ramallah, that we have are initially students from conservatories. And now the question that is, I think, I'm not an expert in the music industry, but I think it's always all the musicians, even musicians that are part of the national orchestra or DJs, are doing that as a second job, and they're not finding ways of sustaining themselves only through the music industry and through the money that they could make through music. So that's one of the things that is not taking it as fast as it should be. But there's an underground scene that is quite developing, and it's quite crazy to see how much connection there has been happening in between the region, between Jordan and Palestine, and Palestine and Lebanon, and the region. So I think that's a factor as well that would help develop the scene.
I know. Also, I feel growth in general when you like Egypt, for example. There's a couple of trap artists now. They're huge. In Egypt, you get 100 million views in a week, which is crazy. But it's a huge population. But in general, yeah, there is a following, and we have bands from Amman that, for us, because we've seen them in Amman so many times in Jordan. Amman is a small city. You see them, they go to Cairo, for example, and play live, and it's an insane crowd, like insane numbers that you would never get in Amman either. Which I think for me shows there's like this connection already in the region, and fame for certain bands and indie bands and that kind of stuff. So the support is great. I know lots of people, lots of our friends who are in bands or musicians, and they love going to Egypt for that matter. Suddenly you have a huge concert happening. And I think it's the internet helped a lot in the growth and getting to know of what's happening in the region as a whole.
I think the surprising thing about the internet, which can also be this really flattening influence, right? So it makes everything the same. It can homogenize. 100%. You can see it in like American indie rock, where everyone reads the same Pitchfork reviews and then they all start to sound like the same monster. And I've always been surprised by the way that regional sounds will sing through a lot of instrumental electronic music or club music. You can look at Latin America, that scene, to hear, cumbia influences and things like that. And the same in the Middle East, where I've been paying a little bit more attention. I've been to Dubai a couple of times, which is a little bit of a gathering spot for that. And now you guys are in the middle of this storm as curators and programmers, and people are coming to you all the time wanting shows. Where do you think things are happening around the region, like hotspots? I mean, Beirut is having a very tragic, sad time right now, and that was a real engine of electronic and club. And
I mean, great question. Beirut, I feel, is such a resilient place to begin with. Lebanon, they've had a civil war for 20 years. So there's a resilience, I think, that's beautiful, that always shines, even now, although now it's unprecedented probably in the history of it with the COVID and the crash of the economy. But the hotspots have been those, in general. It's been, Cairo, Beirut, Ramallah, Amman, and even Saudi. I was talking about this the other day. Saudi for the longest time, no one kind of bothered with the culture going on there, and it's coming out very nicely. And what you said about cumbia, me and my best friend play cumbia here, which once when we started the radio, we have a Brazilian listener who's always there, Marina, and Marina is like, what do you mean you're playing Brazilian music in Jordan? Like it's unfathomable for some. It's insane, I think, and that's, I think, for sure the effect of the internet, and the fact that we can get our hands on things and dig around on a way wider spectrum, musically saying. But the hotspots are those, and even Morocco and Morocco has a huge scene right now, like huge scene. And it's that, I think, what's happening is, more people are getting to know. And I think some of it is beautiful quality stuff to begin with. yeah.
I think the role that we are trying to play as well is the fact that, you know, I live in Bethlehem. I'm Palestinian, but I have a French passport too. But I'm not allowed to travel in different areas of the Middle East. So, and for example, Saeed is Jordanian. In order to come to Palestine, he has to get an authorization by Israel, which is a very complicated. A very complicated procedure. So the idea of the radios as well is to try to connect musicians, artists, DJs from across the region, and potentially look into collaborations, trying to identify different ways of creating these ventures, not essentially by physically being together, but looking at, you know, what the radio can offer and what these form of collectiveness can generate.
And I think Mark said something very important in the beginning, is the normalization of being online. You know, before this, okay, we know all this, we know friends and we know people in Egypt or Beirut, but to come and tell them, hey, do you wanna send us a mix, or you wanna have a concert online? They're probably like, no, why don't you fly me in? You know, so now I think COVID, everyone at home, that helped a lot. So and the acceptance of it, I think, is very important. As Mark said, it got normalized. So now we're like, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, why not? You know, why not do this? And I like that Radio Alhara is becoming a center point of either people in the region and people from, you know, Europe and the States. And another thing, like, it's not just hunting for talent. Like, I think the thing I love a lot about radio, and we all do, is the even playing field. So we have people who are like, you know, throw big, huge parties or concerts, but we also have people who are students that just have a really good taste, or, you know, a specific taste or a niche. And I love the fact that both get, you know, are on the radio. Someone with huge, you know, equipment and crazy stuff, and somebody with the sound card. The prerequisite is, you know, good music to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. I think that we're going to move to some questions now, and one of the questions was actually my totally obvious last question, but I just also wanted to maybe close with a comment about how beautiful it is that what you guys do, and I've been listening to it while I work. And I don't work in radio anymore, but I'm still so attracted to how it's this intimate medium, and the way that you're using it, and in the context that it was started, your radio becomes this traveling machine, and you have this fluid, weightless, borderless, uncontainable medium with internet radio, and it's really powerful. So congratulations on keeping that ball in the air.
Thank you. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask, we have some questions in the chat already, so I'm going to get to those. And so the question is, what will happen to Radio Alhara after COVID? And if you guys think that and what you think of the sustainability of this important cultural platform that you have.
From the beginning, we felt that the day we feel it's not important and not, you know, relevant, then, you know, we could pull the plug. But, you know, it's still, we work on it every day, I think, and keeping it going on, I think is very important. But I don't know how. We don't know. We don't, like, we'll wait and see what happens once everything is back to normal. Although with that said, the radio itself is, you know, it's very organic in the sense of, you know, you have sometimes you have weeks of, like, you know, quiet listenership, because you can monitor everything, and then you have weeks that are insane. So it's like, accept it. It's not like this solid thing that's continuously rising into the, you know, the horizon, but it's I feel like it's a communal feel of everyone. Like this week, I feel okay, everyone just wants to listen, you know, or like they had a tough week before. Maybe that's the way I try to say it, and everyone's tuning in, they just want to listen. And another thing I think is very important, we didn't mention, but this is something we focused on from the start, about the sound itself. So, we're all at home, we're not in clubs. And, there's lots of, hard techno and house DJs. So in the beginning, we kind of asked them, listen, if you can, and we used to email this with I'd be like, oh, do I ask this or do I not ask this? Can you send this like a home listening set? Like, I'd like to know what you listen to at home, because it can't be house and techno.
It can be.
It can be. I know. We got surprised. But I think the response was beautiful as well, in the sense that lots of people were like, what, really? That's fantastic. I would love to do that, because we as humans, I think, tend to pigeonhole ourselves in, like, especially with music apps, like, okay, I only play, house and techno, and that's why I do, And when I play to anyone outside myself, it's that, or personas. And I think there was a certain feeling of liberation for many people who are known to play, more hard, clubby hitting sounds, to just play what they like.
The sound of interior.
Nice, Yeah, the sound of interior, 100%. And I think that's very important. I think, and that's what I love about, because when I play in parties, it's mostly Brazilian and funky music, but, I'm not all sunshine and flowers all the time.
Yeah.
I would just add something. I mean, one of the things that is allowing us to continue and to have this motivation to do it that way is the fact that we are totally independent. And the way we manage the radio is that we work without deadlines. We are not asking people to submit the recordings within a certain deadline. It's totally a declustered system where we are refusing actually funding, because we think that it's a radio that is working in a way that is totally self-sustainable. It's self-sustainable because we're 5 and we are putting 1 to 2 to 3 hours a day on the functioning of the radio, and I think that's one of the richness that we want to preserve. And but we like as well to think that the identity of the radio and the way it functions is something that can change and that can adapt to different scenarios, and that is an identity that has the malleability to evolve in time and to adapt to different situations. So we don't want to stick to a specific thing, and we don't want to stick to a specific ideology, but it's rather a structure. It's rather a platform that has the ability to adapt.
Also, you guys have other jobs in normal life.
Yeah.
So,
sadly. No, they're fun jobs. They're fun jobs, to be honest.
Okay. I'm going to try to combine a couple of the questions here.
Okay.
It's about discovering how you discover the music that you're sharing through Radio Alhara, and combined with, could you each share a couple of artists from your hometown that you think everyone tuning in should check out?
I think it's just a proliferating system where the first circle of friends started inviting their circle of friends, and eventually people started actually emailing us and asking if they can contribute, and this is the way it's we're trying to reach. And we actually dig as well, and we try to identify specific artists that we'd like to showcase. And the second part of the question was
a couple of recommendations from your hometown.
Yes. So I think there's of course Muqata from Ramallah. There's a very young as well DJ Haikal. So there's actually the Ramallah underground scene. There's a collective called Salib Wahed. They're quite super interesting. And from Amman, Saeed.
I mean, it's so hard now. It's such a hard question, because like my favorites maybe, or like they're all over the world. But I mean, I have my best friend who I play with. He's on the radio. His name is Hamid Masri, but on the radio he's known as the Mango Thief. A very good friend of ours who's going to start a show soon is called Late the Mashqiya. He runs something called Drowned by Locals. it's a rougher sound, but you know, a lovely rougher sound in general. So you can check out Drowned by Locals and like the Mashqiyya. A friend of ours who goes by Shusmo, now he either plays, he has a bi-monthly slot on the radio, Shusmo. He either plays or he invites people to play. And I'm trying to remember Atlas Muthanna, who's with us, part of the team, plays once a month. And the beautiful thing about Muthanna, he's very into the Arabic music. It's usually Arabic music, and really, now he's once a month, and we keep telling him off about it, but he needs to come back because he's got great taste in that specifically, in that area. So Muthanna Hussein Atlas, or he's known as Atlas on the radio, like an atlas. If I remember anything else, I'll keep it in mind. If I remember anything else, I'll let you know in a bit.
I was reading recently an article about how artists in Palestine, artists in Iran, because of global sanctions, are not able to use PayPal, which is how Bandcamp hooks up payments to artists. I don't know if there's alternative ways to get access to some of this music. I know Mukata records can be bought online, but whether there is a kind of workaround to get access to stuff.
I mean, I didn't know about this specifically. Like, I don't think, I don't have anything on Bandcamp. I buy from Bandcamp. But yes, PayPal is a pain sometimes. Like in Amman, at least, if I want to pay someone or somebody wants to pay me through PayPal, I have to go actually open a bank account in a new bank. The only bank that kind of supports PayPal. So it's a bit of a mission. It's a bit of a mission, to be honest. And I remember two other people, Ghaltan. Sorry, I'm trying to remember people. And Ayla as well. Ayla is now in Amman. She's from Lebanon, but check those out. But yeah, PayPal is a problem. It is hard. I mean, we just had a problem, yes, when you know, we sold the Fil Mishmish t-shirts on Everpress, and خلاص, everyone pays with PayPal, and you know, we had to go around and like, you know, get our bank details. Yeah, it's PayPal is still not fully integrated unless, you know, probably I go open a bank account. I don't know about Ilyas. Ilyas, do you have PayPal?
I think another topic that's related to that is the fact that, you know, there's a huge number of artists and DJs that are leaving the country because in order to travel and do their tours, the cost of travel becomes insanely high because they have to travel to Amman, and from Amman to travel to Europe, and automatically the costs of travel become so high that they are no more invited actually to be part of you know, concerts or gigs. So that as well. A sad situation.
I think we've come kind of to the end of our time, and also questions. And I want to thank you so much for this time together.
Thank you.
I wish you all the luck and increasing technical skills that you are going to require to keep the radio going.
Yes.
And again, thank you to Mark and Maud, Sled Island.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It was really nice.
Tete-a-Tete is going to continue, so stay tuned to Sled Island channels.